Here it is. It's a chance to laugh at someone else's mistakes. Here's the thing. When we go over sample student writing, I tend to be hypercritical. And it's not because there are no good things in the documents, it's because, well, I can teach you a lot more by pointing out the kind of mistakes people make. And this is one where, honestly, it's not all that bad, but there's a lot of stuff that can be improved. So we're going to focus on the stuff that needs changing. Let's face it, you can't do a good job. You can't have a good career unless somebody decides to hire you. So making sure these documents are as good as humanly possible is very, very important because there will always be stiff competition. Now, in terms of the sample student essay 2, let's take it step by step. First, in terms of the resume, take a look at it. Does it jump out at you? Does it shock you with its brilliance? First, let's talk about its content. Now, content-wise, there's not a whole lot to really critique here. It seems orderly. All of the work, the different job experiences are definitely within the realm of the job that the person is going for. It does have an objective period, which you can probably get out of there. The problem with objectives is they're generally written to either be so generic as to be a sign that this is just a form document you're sending out to everyone in the history of the world, or if it is made specific to the job, it's usually hard to do that in an organic way. It's much better if you're trying to say you're perfect for this job to start including the key words that you see in the actual job posting. Usually they'll have something to do with those transferable skills we've talked about, all the way throughout when you describe the jobs you have. Otherwise, it's a job for somebody coaching track and field. It seems pretty good in that way. Now, where it falls down is in terms of document design, because it is not what you would call all that interesting. If you have a massive stack of these things, is this one going to catch your eye at all? No, it's pretty dull. Font use. Font use is important because attractive documents tend to get read more and used more. So which font does this use? Times New Roman. Now, there's nothing wrong with Times New Roman per se. The problem with Times New Roman is that it is a default font. It is the very standard according to most international standardization organizations. So you're definitely not going to stand out by using the exact same thing that everyone else is using. The other difficulty in terms of design is it's not all that easy to draw distinctions between these various items in here. The first reason for that is because all of the headings are lined up, yeah, but they're not all that distinct from what you have going on in the rest of the document. Headings are very important because what they do is they kind of map out your organization. You get to see how the various parts fit together. If you have headings and you can tell the individual parts, not only does that help the reader know your organization, it also helps the reader be able to find stuff. You can't really find stuff if you can't distinguish the parts. That means you're going to have to read through the entire thing. Keep in mind the cell phone manual principle. So, some examples of how this happens. Education, University of Toledo. It's slightly bigger, but not enough to really jump out. What's even less distinct is later on where you have the heading for experience. The entry under experience is bold. which means it stands out more than the experience does. This is why I've said that when you do headings, you really should be doing a sans serif font for the heading so it visually distinguishes itself from the body text. Remember, serif, the small decorative flourishes on the end of letters, sans does not have any of those. Now, in terms of these sans serif fonts which are available, there are a lot of popular ones. Gill Sans Bold. You don't really want any of the ultra bold ones because you don't want Arial because it's boring. It's like the Times New Roman of sans serif fonts. Arial Black, overly bold ones in general tend to be better suited for other purposes. Bauhaus just looks weird. Now, Franklin Gothic Heavy is too heavy for our purposes. What about Impact over there in the second column? Again, these aren't really suited for document headings because they overwhelm the text. But the rest of these, there's a lot of good variety in here. I mean, if you just have to do Arial Narrow looks a lot different than the standard Arial. But why would you do that when you have Lucida Sans, when you have Berlin Sans? You see it gives a completely different touch. I really should have crossed out Calibri because, again, it's kind of a default. Century Gothic has a different look than Franklin Gothic Book. Gill Sans is a good traditional one. I used to use that a lot. You can be more creative with your fonts than just using the boring stuff, and it will make your document stand out. Another way this organization tends to disappear in this paper is that, well, let's look at one of the entries. Track and cross-country athlete. The thing about this is the big title up top, the dates of the meet, and the places where this particular student placed in these championship runs is all on the same level. There's no distinction in terms of border, and it's easy enough to add on a distinction. If you have a bigger text here to distinguish these things, you can indent them. You can put a space between the individual entries, like this place 22nd in the January 2005. There's no space whatsoever in them. The problem with this is that when we look at it, our eye thinks that these things are together. So we have to pay more attention to notice that they're separate things. This is actually 3 big entries, with 2 of them have 2 sub-entries, but it all looks like a giant block. Easy enough to fix, though. If you wanted to, the bulleted list, for instance, could be indented, and it could be as easy as just hitting the decrease or increase indent button. The indent button would work perfectly fine for all of these, because all of these are just one simple line. The problem here is that this one, won All-American title in cross-country and indoor track, is actually going on to the second line. What you need to do in that case is give it a hanging indent. Hanging indent is where the second and any lines beyond the first are indented in. So the first line is at the normal margin. Everything after that is indented in a little bit. You can do this a couple ways. You can highlight everything and then drag that little arrow over until it looks right. Or you can go into the menus. If you go to the paragraph tab at the bottom, there's a little box which will pop up this. And this will allow you to select first line indent or hanging indent, which is what you would want for this particular document. Notice it also helps you adjust the spacing, so you can go into multiple spacing, 1.08, because I guess that single spacing made it look just a little bit too cramped. That's fine. You can increase the spacing. I wouldn't go beyond 1.5, because by then you're starting to look like you're just padding it out. The spacing before and after, by putting 8-point font here, you notice in the background text, there's a little bit of extra space between these entries. Now, you do that here. If you were to just hit the enter key and put a big space in there, it might give a bit too large of a gap. It might make the thing look like there's a hunk of inserted white space and you're moving on to a new section. A little bit of space will separate out items. A lot of space will signal to the brain that you're moving on to the next part. Now, that's the resume. So let's look at the cover letter. The cover letter, well, in terms of visual design, it's kind of boring, isn't it? But these are all things we talked about before. Just doing your best to make it look attractive will get you noticed to a certain level. The more important issues as far as the letter go are in terms of content. So let's look at 3 paragraphs. First, the introductory paragraph. I am very interested in the position of graduate assistant coach for the women's track and field teams that you advertised on the U.S. Track and Field and Cross Country Coaches Association website. First, are you supposed to do 1-sentence paragraphs? Is that a paragraph? The second thing I note is that the person is very interested. They don't actually say they're applying for it. They could be asking for more information. Yeah, I know you can expect whoever is going through these things is going to assume that the applicant is applying, but you shouldn't really write hoping that the reader assumes correctly. It's your job as a writer to communicate as clearly as possible. Let's take a look at one of the body paragraphs. I have 11 years experience in track and field and cross country. I competed on different levels of competition from regional to national, and I have the experience required as an assistant coach to advise athletes at a variety of levels. For the past 5 years, I also helped coach kids from 5 years old through high school age during summer camps. My time in sports has taught me discipline and self-motivation, skills that would make me perfect for this position. The problem with this is as written an all about me paragraph. Cover letters aren't just shoving information about yourself. That's the job of the resume. The job of a cover letter is to draw the connections explicitly for the reader. Here, the job only comes up in the last sentence. What this does not do is what a letter should do. The main thing a letter is saying what I can do for you. If you don't tell me what I can do for you, well, as a reader, if I'm looking at an application, they don't tell you what they can do for me, I'm forced to try to think of it on my own. Do you want to leave your fate to the hands of someone trying to figure something out? No, you should spell it out. The conclusion, I would like to discuss this position with you. This is a call to action, and that's a good thing. You want the person to go, maybe we should talk. You can contact me for an interview by phone or email at your soonest convenience. I am looking forward to talking to you. Well, there's a sentence issue there, but I have the bigger problem. They want to talk to me. I can contact them by these ways. How do I do that? Where's the information? Again, I know it's at the top, but do you really want to have your fate rely on somebody thinking that out? Spell it out. Give the information. Yeah, I know it might seem like we're really nitpicking in the details here, but details are actually really important when it comes to job applications. Remember, you're going to be going against a whole lot of people who have a whole lot more experience than you. There'll be a stack of resumes on someone's desk. You got to make yours perfect, and you got to make yours stand out. See you in the next video.